So I did this before and the audio is kind of janky, and it's because I recorded this like a year ago, or at least that one, and it's like, that'll be too much editing. And it's one of those things where it's like, I'm not going to do it right, and even now I'm not going to do it right because it's one of those subjects or one of those like things that you really like that you can talk for hours and hours. But then someone's like, okay, let's be concise and talk about it for like 5 minutes, and you're like, I have no idea where to start from. Like Xenosaga is one of those things where like I could probably do like half an hour thing, but it's like, why the fuck, I'm just rambling. Anyways, this is the third one I did on Clannad. It's not on video format or anything, it's on a thing or the blog or whatever it's called, and it's probably my last one as well because like I have all these other things I wrote in already, and it's one of those things where it's like I feel writing cathartic for me, but the audio stuff or even editing is kind of cathartic, but the video part is kind of boring, honestly, or talking about it, because like even until like recently it was kind of weird just talking to myself, and it's like, oh, that's weird. And even then, I think there's like these 8 things I probably put on the screen. It's like, these are the ones I'm thinking of writing about. Some of them are already done. Some of them like, well, I have something to talk about it, so I was like, I'll go with it. But for this one, it's gonna be the last one for Clannad. So like the first one was like the best route order. I can probably just put on screen. And the other one I think was called like the rambling or something, because when you start the VN, I consider Tomoya like already a new game plus, and it's one of those things that doesn't really get addressed in the anime from what I remember. Because right in the first run, Tomoya and Nagase already know about the dream and the tale, and it hasn't really happened yet. The tale gets repeated constantly throughout the plot, and they'll get to it eventually, and this is something new. At least at this point, Maeda just likes doing this shit. It's just that this is one of the more like subtle ones, whilst Little Busters was extremely blunt, at least for me. I think you can figure out the plot in like the first hour or so, but I'm not going to go extremely in depth with it because since it's like me just repeating a lot, and I get it, it gets annoying. It's one of my pet peeves. So the topic on this one is mainly that the plot is about Tomoya. Sure, the others have varying levels of importance, but it's about Tomoya for me, right? The other part is this guy expanded upon Dandelion Girl, something that's like 10 pages long, into something that I believe is like 2,000 pages. That's some huge ass expansion. And I guess the last part will be about some of the characters and alongside what changed in the anime itself. So to me, Clannad is just about a few things that change is inevitable and you shouldn't be afraid of it, and the importance of bonds even outside of the familial ones, all wrapped up into the expanded piece of Dandelion Girl. It's just that it's stupidly long, like I can probably take out the twins in either Yukine or Sagara, and everything I liked about Clannad stays intact. Hell, Kappei, Sunohara, and Toshio could have been integrated into the main plot like Yoshino was, right? And I guess you can put Sagara inside Tomio's route and it'll still work. So the problem is that there's so many routes, and for the most part they're all based on forming like a relationship slash bond, and it's understandable to think that it's like, oh, it's about the girls, but that's just a short payoff to keep you going. And depending on the route, I can see people saying like, it doesn't do that good of a job, at least until you finish it all. Because it's like any other long-term goal where you set milestones for yourself. And some of them, like working out, generally gives you the side benefit of having better mental health or some shit. It's not what you're going for, but you're glad that it happened, and that's Clannad for me, because yeah, the goal is always to get to the end of the route, and that's generally the happy ending, and that's generally after resolving whatever issue that the female character is going through. But in Clannad, that's the main character. He's not an insert character, he has his own shit to go through, and until he's content with himself, the ending can't happen. Tomoya is just best girl after a lot of fucking work. So let's go with the parts of the anime. It actually did a good job and also fucked up a lot of things at the same time. Like Kotsumi is really integrated in the anime, whilst in the VN she's specifically just in her own route for the most part, outside of maybe like choosing some options where you can meet her but then rarely hang out with her. And I think that it only makes it so she's an option for some of the events, not that she'll be included with the rest of the cast for as many things that the anime did. On the other hand, the anime had to get rid of a lot of character routes in one go, and it was laughable how bad it was. Like, I don't think Kappei is shown at all, and he's one of my favorite routes in the whole thing. Maybe he was there, but he's just such a background thing that he probably just missed it. It's been pretty much over a decade overall, and I'm surprised at how much I still remember from it. A lot of what the anime did well was that it had a stronger emotional impact. And part of it is because Tomoya actually has voice lines this time around. And yeah, that's normally a thing that's not happening in the VNs, and that's kind of sad because normally if it was, a lot of these VNs I've read would have a much better rating. Sometimes I feel like just cutting off one character or two and all that budget that would be supported for them, just go to the voice lines for the male character, it would be great. But overall, sometimes, you can't do it. Like, Yukine hits hard in the anime, but then again, that scenario was kind of changed anyway. It wasn't really what it was trying to do in the VN. It was meant to be a more somber experience while also comparing her brother's circumstances with Tomoya. There's a lot of resemblances. He's the main character after all. Kappei's legs and Tomoya's shoulder, Yukine's brother's delinquency in him, Yoshinu's path of self-destruction and what he's going through, his father and him, the lack of parental guidance and what Furukawa's and Toshio's providing in the background. The main characters are kind of different but still hold a situation where Tomoya to develop and get out of his rut. Either getting encouraged by Tomoya or having a more inept character to the point that he has to step up instead. The worst part of the anime is how they use the orbs. In the anime, it's just a MacGuffin, and it's hard to make it work when you put Yukine and Sagar back to back, and it's like, oh, this is what the orbs do, and boop, hey, magic, hey, it works. And it's like, wow, stupid. In the VN, it's a gradual process. You get one for pretty much every route. Sure, you can mess up and do your own like route order and it fucks up and it's like, oh, now you do Yukine and Sagar by the end. It's like, oh, now I know what the orbs are for. But by the whole process, you know what these orbs are kind of meant to do, and you put it in your back of your mind. You're like, oh, I know they're supposed to be important. And I forgot how the orbs are made, and I think it was just making it hard to create happy moment, and it's like, oh, poof, it makes up. It doesn't really matter here because I find Tomoya's growth to be a lot more important than the actual orbs itself. And like I said before, he can't end till he's also happy. The orbs don't fucking do anything until then. So I'm hitting the end. It's time to go into Dandelion Girl. It's really short and it's used as a reference in Kotomi's route. The story is probably named inside that route, but I don't remember. The general plot is that a lady with dandelion colored hair comes from the future and meets this guy in this hill. The guy feels like he met her before. They met up a few times throughout the days. The guy's married, but it's kind of getting to this lady. She confesses and then promises to meet another day, but the time machine is breaking apart. Doesn't see her for the rest of his vacation, goes back home. And while some of his feelings is Ari, he still loves his wife and how she's still lovely and charming in his eyes, only to find out his wife was the girl. She just traveled back in time even further when he was young. So he races off to the bus station to meet her and says everything's okay. There's stuff that's important that makes parts of the plot work, like how there's time cops and generally time traveling back in time is illegal unless it's part of your job. So the wife never gets photographed to avoid detection, or that the guy sees her as someone as a child because of the age difference in the beginning of the plot. So that's probably something to do with her going back even further. But it doesn't really matter outside of how he feels that while time has gone forward, he still sees elements of what he loved, and after he realizes that he goes after where she is. And that's the last half section of the VN. It's Tomoya finally getting out of his rut and knowing what he wants and how to do it. Sure, the magic orbs did most of the work, but Nagasaki wouldn't come back if it wasn't for Tomoya. They even give you a choice to say you're not ready. It's just Dandelion. The illusionary world is the time machine. The ending is Tomoya getting where she departs. About how they finally accept that things can't be stopped. And I'm not counting this one because it's kind of generic, but the first place they meet is the hill as well, but in the end expanded so much more than that. When the Dandelion is a short piece of two main characters, Clannad is a whole family's worth of people. And in some cases the anime did it better, where most of the casts hang out after graduation here and there, where the Vienna afterwards is mainly just Nagisa family and Tsunohara and the Fuko family. And I guess Tomoya's family a little bit, but that's later on. And that's basically it. I think the VN put more emphasis on Tomoya and how, through cementing his feelings to this town and the people he cares about, he accepted who he was and what he wants in life, even if there could have been a better outcome for others. The anime also shit the bed with the last two episodes. Honestly, the two episodes should have been added after episode 20. It just been two episodes of hijinks between Ushio and their maternity characters. I have no fucking idea why. It's like, hey, after the whole anime's or the VN's basically done, let's put an extra two freaking OVAs afterwards. Like, what the fuck are you doing? Also, I forgot to mention that the anime did a great job of ripping out the VN scenes about Tomoya with his dad Naoyuki and just slapping it in there. I think most people remember episode 18 the most, the one where Tomoya and Ushio hug it out. Some remember like Nagisa's death the most in episode 16. But episode 19 just edges out to be my favorite episode, where Tomoya gets his shit together and that the healing for Nagisa's family could finally start. But mostly it's the last chunk that just emphasizes on Tomoya realizing on how much his father cared about him. Yeah, he's a total fuck up, but it's not like he even had the opportunity to confide in others. From all that we know, he was pretty much alone with no business opportunities or friends. He did the best that he could. And yeah, if you cared more about the girls, I can see why you don't like the VN all that much. There's way better VNs for that. This isn't really for that. Honestly, Key usually doesn't do that part amazingly. It's always the over-encompassing plotline that they do well. It's too long. Does it have padding? Yeah, it does. I wouldn't call it a bad thing in this case, but normally it is. It's a huge payoff, and it made it worth it. But for some people, it's like, holy shit, I'm dying here. It's so boring. For me, the padding made it all work, because the whole time Tomoya is like, I don't want shit to change, and that's what padding is. Like, I don't want to get to the next point. But overall, the whole thing about Clannad for me is Tomoya. The girls are fine, Nagisa is cute, Fuko's cute. Yeah, these were fine. Great. To me, it was about Tomoya. Tomoya was the beast. It's one of those things like even if you read the VN and didn't watch the anime, maybe take the, you know, give the anime a chance anyway, because guess what? He has VAs and he's also very humorous in that one. So it's like, why not have a whole encompassing like combination of everything? It's great. And just to reiterate, that's why I really hated that section. I think it was like episode 14, Apple Store, where I hated the fucking whole section of the orbs because it made no sense. It's like, hey, yeah, we kind of see that the orbs are magic, so let's revive the things. Like, yeah, the orbs do that, but the whole point is like, the user has to be ready for what it is. And that's why even Noxer herself, by the end of the end, is like, I'm actually surprised I'm here. I'm surprised you accepted it and you want to be with me again, because guess what? Tomoya had a lot of chances. He had a lot of options to go through, and throughout everything, he still chooses Nagase in the end. And it's one of those things that I think, again, with the other one I wrote a long time ago, it's like, oh, this is like their new game plus plus. Tomoya probably did like 50 runs of this stupid ass VN until it shows up in Nagase. I was like, holy shit, you're actually back. So yeah, the whole general thing is like Tomoya and Nagase are back together, and they're both together. Like, yeah, I'm ready to continue our path into the future. I'm done, you know, what ifs here and there. It's like, maybe I should have done something, maybe I'm not ready, I'm still in my little drama dump over there in the corner, right? It's like, no, I'm done, I'm good to go, let's do this.